This comes to us from a few different sources. This one first, Vicegrad said, breaking. Trump announces 25% tariffs on Japan and South Korea. This is new. This just happened today. This is July 7th, 2025. And people who are into gaming aren't going to be huge fans of what this means for repercussions when it comes to Switch 2 specifically. Pirate Nation, Onyx. Trump set 25% tariff on Japanese imports to U.S. effective August 1st. Nintendo Switch games imported from Japan will cost 25% more if tariff persists. So this should be something that concerns anyone that is in the market for a Switch 2 or owns a Switch 2, because they've already raised the price of games to $80 per game in some cases, especially Mario Kart World. And now a 25% tariff on top of that would push these games over $100 if this persists and is real. This story comes to us from the Associated Press. It says, Washington, President Donald Trump on Monday set a 25% tax on goods imported from Japan and South Korea, as well as a new tariff rates on a dozen other nations that would go into effect on August 1st. This, like I said, breaking news and is a very real thing. Like, not one of those, oh, they might do it or he threatened it. Like, he put it into effect for August 1st. So this will, assuming nothing changing, will affect the price of Nintendo Switch games. This is a very big deal. Trump provided notice by posting letters on Truth Social that were addressed to the leaders of various countries. Letters warned them to not retaliate by increasing their own import taxes, or else the Trump administration would further increase tariffs. If for any reason you decide to raise your tariffs, then whatever the number you choose to raise them by will be added onto the 25% that we charge, Trump wrote in letters to Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Isuba and South Korean President Lee Jae-myung. Letters were not the final word from Trump on tariffs, so much as another episode in the global economic drama in which he has placed himself at the center. His moves have raised fears that economic growth would slow to a trickle, if not make the U.S. and other nations more vulnerable to a recession, which, by the way, is very true if they do raise their taxes and they do call Trump's bluff and Trump just fights back and adds more to it. Yes, that's a very real outcome that could happen from all of this. But what has happened historically when Trump threatened these before is that all the countries backed down, conceded, and gave Trump what he wanted. And Trump might be feeling like he's going to be able to do that again right now. And the concern is still there that it won't work this time. And we have writers at the Associated Press that have Trump derangement syndrome taking the angle of, yeah, it probably won't work, and more economic growth slowing and more vulnerable to a recession. But Trump is confident that tariffs are necessary to bring back domestic manufacturing and fund the tax cuts he signed into law last Friday. He mixed his sense of aggression with a willingness to still negotiate, signaling that the likelihood that the drama and uncertainty would continue and that few things are ever final with Trump. Now, what I did see in relation to this is kind of quasi-related, but not necessarily directly related, is Nintendo is potentially reevaluating how they make games, because the tariffs, if this goes into effect, would completely destroy their company. Because ain't no one spending $100+ on Mario and Zelda games. Maybe some people are, but not enough people to continue selling record-breaking profits and making enough games to keep up with people. This would be devastating if it went into effect. So I saw this from Pirate Nation, And again, not a direct retaliation, but the timing is curious. Nintendo plans to explore shorter game development cycles to counter rising costs. They're also investing in their teams to preserve traditional game making methods. And this comes to us from Games Radar. It says Nintendo combats big budgets with games that only need shorter development periods alongside $80 Switch 2 behemoths like Mario Kart World. Now, this story originally came out on July 4th, which is why I say it's not a direct retaliation to the story today of the 25% tariffs going, but it does make you wonder if Nintendo knew that this is the direction that it was going. So they started talking about maybe changing how they go about the development process with their games. The only difference being is if the 25% tariff persists, then I don't think it's going to be alongside $80 games because, again, nobody's going to be spending $105, $110 plus dollars plus tax on games USD. That's going to be in California. You're talking $125 out the door to buy a Switch 2 game. Yeah, that's going to be a tough sell. Like I would probably buy it for the next Zelda game and maybe even the next Mario game if it's on par with the previous ones. But outside of that, nope. Like maybe a Pikmin 5 type thing, maybe, because I really like those games. But it's very slim pickings. And that's a lot of money to be asking. And that's me just saying, yeah, I probably would. But when rubber hits the road and you go to the store to actually buy it, would you actually spend that much on it? That's a lot. That's a lot. I don't know. I'm kind of just winging this, but I'm saying it out loud right now. And I'm saying it. I'm like, that's kind of a lot. But they do bring up $10 welcome tour, which I found curious because that game I do feel should have been included as a pack-in title. I bought it just to test it out and play it. When I flew to see family for the 4th, I played that game on the airplane, and it was very fun to go through. It was a perfect game to play on the airplane. Lots of stuff to do in the world, and it was fun. It was a good time passer. It's one of those games you can play in spurts. You can take breaks from it, stuff like that. It's a very well done game, but also it's a game that just kind of explores what the Switch 2 has capabilities to do. And at the end of the day, I feel like that should just have been a part of the Switch 2. But being $10, okay, whatever. I think that's something a lot of people would be okay with digesting moving forward, especially with the amount of content and time that I've gotten playing it and gotten out of it. I've gotten $10 worth of game out of that game. I've gotten more than $10 out of it. So if that's the case, then yeah, I'm on board with more games like that because it's a very good game. Nintendo's aware that game development is getting unsustainably expensive, with some AAA games costing upwards of $200 million to make. But it has a plan in place to make sure things don't get out of control in the Switch 2 era, coming from the same company that is charging $80 for Switch 2 games. In a recent investor Q&A, Nintendo president Shuntaro Furukawa was probed, about whether the improved performance of the Switch 2 will lead to higher development costs, which in turn could result in higher software prices, as seen with the controversial $80 price tag attached to Mario Kart World. The solution? Make smaller, cheaper games alongside the mammoth hits. I think this is going to be twofold, and ironically, almost feels like this is the direction that Nintendo's going to collapse back into if these tariffs persist. Because again, you can't keep selling games for $120 for a long period of time and think that that's not going to affect the bottom line in the long term of your company. Recent game software development has become larger scale, longer duration, resulting in higher development costs. President admits the game business has always been a high-risk business, And we recognize that rising development costs are increasing that risk. Our development teams are devising various ways to maintain our traditional approach to creating games amidst increasing scale and length of development. One of the ways is to develop game software with shorter development periods and still offers consumers a sense of novelty. You can already see the strategy play out with Welcome Tour for $10, Drag and Drive for $20, not to mention games like Donkey Kong Bonanza still cost $70, which is slightly less eye-watering. Nintendo is essentially being flexible with its game prices. We see this as one possible solution to the concern about rising development costs and software prices, and we will explore it from various angles within the company. Furukawa adds. Now, again, you guys have heard me say this until my face turns blue, but Nintendo is a business, and they are in business to make money, and currently they are making more money than God. Their stock is at an all-time high or close to it. As of today, it went down 1%, but over in the past 5 days, it's been kind of, leveling between 24 and 22.50. But year to date, look at this. We're talking Nintendo at a max. It is basically right now at all-time highs and far above peaks that it's ever been before. In a current economic environment where you look at it, development costs have never been higher. It's too expensive for us to do this. We're paying how many millions of dollars? Yeah, I get all that. But to me, it's all lip service, because you look at this, it's like, bro, I don't care what your development costs are. This tells me you're making more money than you've ever made before. And shareholders are very happy about it, and they have expectations for you to make even more in the future. So miss me with that, times are tough and development costs are rising. When you are making more money than God, I don't think anyone's going to be believing that. And I do think it's interesting, by the way, with these tariffs, because Nintendo has a couple of options. They could lower the price of their games to match the tariffs and not make as much money and stick with it and say, okay, now it's actually, this is Trump. We're doing this because of Trump. And we are now taking a big hit here, but we're not raising the price on our customer. We are going to take the brunt hit of this ourselves for you, our customers, because $80 is the max we're going to go. Or they could just be like, no, this is the Trump tax. We're going to add 25% on it and blame your president. And I wonder which direction they would go if this becomes a reality. But we will see. I have a feeling it's all a big bluff. It never actually comes to fruition. And this is all just theater, political theater for more positioning. But time will tell. I'll leave that one there.